I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about laundry and lying. Laundry and lying. We were looking for some machines that were more efficient, that would use less water, and so we looked into the front load machines. Some of the reviews said that they would shake violently during the spin cycle. Others said that if you kept the door closed when you weren't using it, mold would build up. And some people said that the clothes did not come out as clean. Well, driven to save water, we went ahead and purchased these machines. And why not? Everybody else has them. So we got them. And just like the review said, we were very unhappy. In fact, after 2 or 3 years, we had them in the garage. We had them tore down, repairing them. The parts are hard to get. They're hard to work on. Lesson learned. You got to ask the question, why do I buy things that I don't need? The other machines were 20 plus years old and still working. Why do I do that? You ever heard of a guy named Edward Bernays? Edward Bernays. He wrote a book in 1928 called Propaganda. Wow, you'd think a book with a name like that you'd know about. He's a nephew of Sigmund Freud. Well, you'd think that with those kind of connections, it's someone you would know about. It's a guy that had extremely striking statements that he made about us as what we're now known as consumers. Notice what he says in this quote. He says, the conscious and the intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the truly ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our taste formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we've never heard of. It is they who pull the wires and control the public mind. That is an incredibly bold statement. What he's saying is that you really don't decide what it is that you're going to do. It's being decided for you. There are people behind the scenes manipulating things to cause you to do what you do. During World War I, he became extremely effective in using these propaganda techniques. And after the war, he thought, these could surely be used. And he changed the terminology from propaganda to public relations. And then he dubbed this idea of the engineering of consent. And so the engineering of consent. So what he's doing at this point is he is trying to tap into not just the rational part of your mind, but the unconscious part of your mind. Now, how does he do that? A lot of you know that when I was a kid, my dad ended up getting a Cadillac, and it had white leather, all white inside. It was just beautiful. And the Cadillac was a symbol of a man that had reached success. And so that was something that you saw. Well, later on in life, he told me, son, a vehicle is simply transportation. See, he had learned the lesson. Don't get all emotionally tied with this stuff. It's simply transportation. Don't tie your identity with this. And so he was unraveling what Edward Bernays had tried to put together. He had also mentioned that there was a systematic study of what individuals and groups of people do, like the herd mentality. And he said, groups of people will move in very predictable fashions. And he says this, if we understand the mechanisms and the motives of the group mind, is it not possible to control the regiment of the masses according to our will without them knowing about it? You get that? Basically what he's saying is if we can see how they move, and they move in these predictable patterns, can't we manipulate those patterns to get them to move where we want them to move without them knowing about it? You might think, yeah, but this guy, he had no influence. None at all, really. Well, he worked for General Electric. He worked for Procter & Gamble, American Tobacco Company, media outlets like CBS, Calvin Coolidge. And so you begin to see that this guy had some pull. Now, how did he actually do this? Well, there was a situation where our country was actually producing more than it was consuming. Very, very efficient and effective. And so they needed more markets. And one of those markets that they needed to expand was the tobacco industry. During this time period, it was not fashionable for women to smoke in public. They would smoke in their homes, but not in public. And so the tobacco company said, we need to break down those taboos so that we can expand this market. He was the man to do it. So how did he do it? Several ways. One is he staged a protest on an Easter morning in 1928. He invited the media, and here's how he did it. He tied cigarette smoking with freedom. Now, women were beginning to work more outside the home. They were experiencing some independence, and yet they weren't able to smoke in public because of this taboo. So he took the Statue of Liberty picture, and the cigarette was the torch, and now women were going to be free and have some liberty. Then in the ads, what he did was he tied the fact that women wanted to be slim and fit with, instead of grabbing a sweet, grab a Lucky Strikes. Then he also said it was smoothing, it has smoothing feeling to the throat because it had menthol. So we know that all of this was not true, that it was a lie. It was a mechanism where they could just simply sell more. One of the other things that he did is he used a health concern. That sound familiar? Used a health concern. And so he was trying to sell Dixie cups. And so said that a typical glass that you washed out could never get clean. And so what you needed to use was a Dixie cup because you used it one time. It was clean. You throw it away. And so he used fear to promote this. This was all fine until these mechanisms fell into the hands of another Jewish man that happened to be aligned with the Third Reich, Joseph Goebbels. And so this guy took these strategies from Edward Bernays and he used them for the propaganda of the Third Reich. And you know how that ended up. And so today, you might think, well, does that even happen today? Well, in the marketing world, it does. They don't call it public relations, they call it branding. And so this is them manipulating you on a subconscious level to get you to do what you want to do. Now, we know that governments do this as well because they've been doing it for almost 100 years now. And so they have got this down to a science. I would encourage you to also look at the how valuable it is to get people to dissimulate and to the infighting that comes in between and how that works in this whole thing as well. Not enough time in this video. In our verse today, we found ourselves in John 8:44, and here we see that it references Jesus, and it says this, that you of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode, listen to this, not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own. He is a liar and the father of it. You know, this is exactly what happened. It happened in the garden. Is he appealed to her own desires, and that was to eat. And so he also appealed to her desire for knowledge. And so he went past what God had told them, tried to connect with those desires. Don't let that happen to you. Be wise and watch what the enemy's doing. God bless.